Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now, with Alton Towers opening weekend fast approaching, I wanted to sit down and give you a coaster chicken guide to the park. Hopefully provide a few tips and hints for anyone visiting the park for the first time, or for any of you coaster chickens out there as well. The first and probably most important ride at Alton Towers will be the monorail. Now, you may be thinking, monorail? What are you on about? But I'm going to be honest with you, the car park is quite a distance away from the entrance. It's quite a big park anyway, and you're going to be doing a lot of walking. So the last thing you want to do is a long walk to and from the park at the end of the day and the start. So what I'd suggest is head towards the monorail. Now, the queue for the monorail at the end of the night can be very long. But I'd say, look, it is worth it. You're going to be tired. It's going to be a long day. And at the start of the day, you're going to want to try and conserve as much energy as you can because you're going to be walking a lot. Now, the monorail itself isn't a long journey to the park, but it does pass through the park, so you get some absolutely brilliant views of things like Nemesis and Galactica as you go towards and from the park. And so I'd say it is worth doing anyway. But yeah, definitely worth doing to save your energy if you're in the car parks. Now, once you get into the park, my top tip would be to head towards the back to the dark forest. The reason I say that, people don't tend to head there, so it is quiet, and it does contain two coasters that get some of the biggest queues at the park in the day. By getting there early, you are going to reduce those queue times, and I've got to be honest, the two coasters themselves are two of the better coasters at the park. Now, if you are following our top tip and heading towards the dark forest at the start of your day, there are two coasters there that offer very different starts to your day. So, if you're looking for a more thrilling start, I'd suggest hitting Rita. Rita is the UK's first launch coaster. It's not the only launch coaster here now, there are quite a few, but it was the first. It hits 62 miles per hour in less than 3 seconds, so it packs a mighty punch. Now, the ride itself is very short. It clocks in at less than 30 seconds. But by getting there early in the morning, you are avoiding those kind of hour and a half queues that you often see at that ride. Now, it isn't a family-friendly ride. You need to be 1.4 metres to ride. And like I say, it's quite a short one, packs a punch, and it's quite a nice ride. The ejector at the end is worth the ride alone, and that launch is something else. It kind of sets off at different times every ride, so you can never predict exactly when you're going to launch. And I think that anticipation adds to the effects of the ride. Slightly less intense start to your morning, I'd suggest the Family Coaster 13. Now, like I said before, it is a family thrill coaster, so this one, height requirements are only 1.2 metres, so much more accessible to families. But saying that doesn't mean it is a child's ride. It does provide a lot of thrills. It has a very unique element that if you're not sure of, you don't know about, I'm not going to spoil here, because experiencing that without knowledge of it is awesome. It does give you a thrill. Okay. Not only that, the first drop on this ride is surprisingly intense for a family coaster. And I've got to be honest, although I'm saying start there, do that first, if you are doing one of the kind of nighttime events, I'd say heading to 13 at night is a totally different experience. It's awesome. Riding through those trees in the dark adds that whole new element. It's so good. I'd say, look, if you can get a nighttime ride on 13, definitely worth it. Now, the theming of 13 is pretty creepy. So if your kids or you are easily scared of things like the dark or ghosts, stuff like that, you maybe want to avoid. But I do think it's not too intense, it's not too frightening, and this is a lot of fun in itself. Now, the final ride in the Dark Forest at the moment is a member of the Retro Squad, which was brought in last year. It's a flat ride. Basically, it's a waltzer. It's called Roller Disco. Now, with it being a waltzer and it being in a theme park, it does unfortunately mean that the staff aren't able to kind of add a manual spin and get you spinning more than kind of the standard. It does mean it's a little bit tame. Maybe one kind of worth skipping if you're into your thrills. But if you are in your family, you're looking for some family fun, It is a good little ride to go for. There isn't a big queue, I've noticed. I've never noticed a big queue. You can get quite a spin on certain carts. Some of them, it barely spins at all, sadly. But like I say, the soundtrack itself last year was brilliant with all those 80s throwbacks. And I'm hoping that does return this year. Like I say, any more rides that we can have in the park is always a nice touch. Now, once we've completed the Dark Forest, we usually find ourselves heading towards X Sector. Now, X Sector does contain two of the biggest coasters in the park, and I've got to be honest, it's not an area I tend to ride many rides at all in. But I always do head there to get some amazing shots of the two coasters and the flat ride that is there. Both the roller coasters themselves are absolute beasts, and I've got to be honest, they're not things I think I'm going to be kind of braving anytime soon. Hopefully one day I do manage to do them because they do look epic. But yeah, like you'll see in a moment, there's a reason why I'm scared of these. Now, the first coaster there worth talking about is the Smiler. The Smiler is one of the latest thrill coasters at Alton Towers. Not only that, but it does hold a world record for most inversions on any coaster. It holds the record at 14 inversions, and each one is different. Now, it's not smashing any records for heights. If you are afraid of heights, you've got nothing to worry about here. But the intensity of the amount of thrills with this coaster come from those inversions. Now, like I say, it is a thrill coaster, so you have to be 1.4 metres in height to ride to begin with. But those inversions are definitely the things that put me off this coaster, as well as that vertical lift hill. Now, the Smiler itself is an amazement to look at. Like I say, every time I go to the park, I do head there and take some pictures. It's an absolute blast watching people ride this Gerstlauer ride. And the Marmalizer in the middle, the big bit of theming, is incredible to look at as well. Now, it did used to have an element of kind of gas on there. Unfortunately, that's no longer there. It's a bit of a shame because that was cool to look at as well. But like I say, you can't go wrong with a ride on the Smiler if you're looking for big thrills. If you're like me, you don't like inversions, you don't like anything too intense, definitely one worth sitting out and getting some shots of this thing running. The other big coaster in this area is Oblivion. Now, Oblivion was the world's first dive coaster, and although it's not completely vertical drop, it is as close can get to a vertical drop without it being one. Now, the drop itself is intense, and obviously the way it kind of perches you just overlooking the drop for a few seconds adds to that fear. Obviously, no inversions on this one, so if inversions are your kind of problem, your thing that's stopping you riding coasters, this one might be something you're ready to brave, but just beware that drop is a big, big drop. Obviously, with it being a big thrill coaster, once again, height limit there, it's 1.4 metres to ride. Now, one of the amazing things about watching this ride is that drop. Watching people perked over, seeing their faces of fear as they're about to drop into the hole is brilliant. And you get some absolutely brilliant pictures of that ride going. Now, there is a flat ride in the X Sector, and this is an Enterprise. Now, this delivers speed and G-forces, goes upside down. It's a ride I've only ever done once. I've got to be honest, too intense for me. But it somehow delivers a family ride as well, so anyone under 0.9 metres can ride this one with an adult. If you're 1.4 metres, you do get to ride it alone. I'd say, look, if you're looking for quite an intense flat ride, it is definitely worth having a look at. I've got to be honest, queues are never that big anymore. It's been in the park for quite a while now. But like I say, it is worth riding if you've not done it before and you do like the quite intense ones. You haven't got to worry about having family members not be able to ride it and sit it out, because like I say, anyone over 0.9 can ride with an adult. Now, last season there was also another Retro Squad member in this area. Unfortunately, they've confirmed that that ride itself isn't coming back this season. I am kind of hoping we'll get something else there. And like I say, hopefully opening weekend we will see something in that area. It'll be a shame really just to see a kind of patch of empty grass or empty ground. But let's keep our fingers crossed for something new this season there. Now, before we leave this side of the park, we always make sure we drop into Adventureland and get a ride on Spinball Wizard. Now, this ride was constructed in 2004 and it's a Maura spinning coaster, gives you 360-degree spins with all the kind of loops and helixes as you go along. It can deliver quite an intense experience if you get the right kind of spin on there. But once again, it is a family-friendly ride, so 1.2 metres to ride it. Okay, now it used to have a Sonic the Hedgehog theme. I do miss that one. Currently it's themed to just Spinball, so pinball itself. It's a nice little ride, good little family ride that kind of delivers some thrills if you get the right kind of weight distribution in the ride. Close to dinner time usually at this kind of time, but before we do kind of head out to somewhere to eat, we always make sure we drop in on Hex, the Legend of the Towers. Now, this is one of the best dark rides in the UK, and the story it tells is absolutely brilliant. Okay, now the story itself is steeped in traditional Staffordshire folklore. So that probably makes it lunchtime about now. We usually try and take our lunch about 2 o'clock, so it just goes against the kind of park rushes and sees less crowds in the dining facilities. Now, our decisions on where to eat depend on two things. Number one, how hungry we are. So if we're very hungry, we make one decision. If we only need a bite to eat, we make a totally different decision. And it also depends on how busy the park is. So if it's a busy day, we try to go to somewhere which is a quick service kind of option, quick option. While if it's a slower day, you've done quite a lot already up to this point, we usually try to eat somewhere a bit more sit down. So if it's a special occasion and we've got the time, we'll always head to the Rollercoaster restaurant. The food itself isn't actually amazing, but the cocktails, the themed ride cocktails are great, and the experience of having your food served to you on a roller coaster is really cool. Otherwise, it's not a special occasion. We tend to go to the all-you-can-eat pizza pasta buffet, and drinks are refillable. Like I say, the pizza and the pasta is all you can eat, so you can keep going back for as much as you want. If you've got the time and you want to fill up, it's a perfect option. Okay, the pizza and the pizza is actually quite good quality as well for what you'd expect. There's a salad bar as well. It's a nice restaurant to eat, and the price isn't ridiculous. You do get a Merlin annual pass discount if you've got one, so yeah, it's worth heading to there if you've got the appetite and the time. Now, if it's a busier day or we're not really that hungry, we tend to go to the Burger Kitchen, and we tend to go to the one near to the dungeons. Seems to be the quieter one, with less being in that kind of area of the park. The prices aren't too bad. Once again, you do get a Merlin annual pass discount as well. But there are a lot of other places that you can eat at Towers that we aren't talking about. I've got to be honest, I could probably blow a whole entire blog talking about the different options for food and whether they're nice or not. I might do that one day. But yeah, for this is our tips at the moment. If you've got time, you're celebrating something special, try and get into the roller coaster restaurant. If you've got time and you're hungry, definitely check out Pizza Pasta. And if you just want a bite, or it's a particularly busy day on park, head to the Burger Kitchen by the dungeons. So after dinner, what we tend to do at the moment, with it being new and having family, we tend to spend a bit of time at the new David Walliams world. Now, if you haven't got family, it might be worth skipping, especially if you're not into kind of family rides. There is a nice dark ride there, pretty decent quality, based on the story Gangster Gran. If you've read it, or you've got family that have read it, or children, it's definitely worth a ride. I would say it's worth checking out once. I did do it a fair few times. I think it's the most ridden ride last year. And I've got to be honest, the first couple of times, that was absolutely brilliant. Some of the effects, unfortunately, weren't working towards the end of the season. I hope they fix them this time. But it's definitely worth checking out once, if once alone. Now, the other rides in the area, probably worth a miss. Okay, there's a kids' drop tower. I think it was the Frog Hopper before. It's just been rethemed. It does now have a fart soundtrack, which is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious, especially when you're in the queue for Gangster Gran, when it's a particularly long one. It is very funny to have a ride next to you farting. There is a Royal Carousel as well, a very small carousel ride for children really, I think, more than anything. Now last season there was a Sizzler ride here. It was billed as temporary, so I don't know if it's going to be there this year. I've not heard anything about it leaving. It was there at the Christmas time kind of celebration, but I've not heard if it's still there now or if it's gone. It was probably one of the better flat rides in that area, to be fair, and kind of a bit more thrilling, I guess, than the two kind of obviously rethemed children's rides. Now, in that area, the buildings that used to be Nickelodeon Out of Control and Ice Age 4D, they're currently shut off. Nothing's going on there. I would like to see kind of maybe a phase 2 expansion, maybe another 4D cinema idea or something else in the other building. It would be nice to see something there. The other thing worth checking out there is Raj's shop. I know you can only get in there if you ride the Gangster Granny experience. It's the big downside there, but it's a really well themed shop. It's got a lot of different things for the kids, so it's definitely worth checking out. Now, while we are on the subject of family trips, another worthwhile area to visit if you've got family, probably not so much if you don't, is Mutiny Bay. So the pirate themed area contains 2 brilliant flat rides and a water ride. The water ride, Battle Galleons, is a ride you are 100% going to get soaked on. I'd say if it's a hot day, it's a perfect ride to cool off on. It's short, sadly, it is a short experience, but it's a water battle ride. You get shot at by people in the queue, people passing by, people on other boats. You are going to get absolutely drenched. I don't think I've ever been on it and not come off soaking wet. It's one of them crowd-pleasing rides where people kind of tend to stop off while walking to somewhere else just to have a go with the guns and kind of fire on people as they ride. And so say, yeah, if you're looking to get wet, that's definitely one to do. The 2 flat rides, there's for me probably one that holds the most amount of memories. Marauders Mayhem used to be the teacups. It's quite a well-themed barrel ride. If you're getting the right one, you can make it spin quite a lot. But like I say, it's only a family ride, but it holds a lot of memories for me. Because it's one of the first rides I kind of remember at Alton Towers. That's still there now, really. Yes, rethemed, but the same ride. There is also a rocking tug in this area called Heave Ho. Nice little ride for families. But like I say, if you haven't got families, this area could be one worth skipping. It's got a lot of the carnival-style games where you can win cuddly toys. There's a big arcade. And there's also a sea life area. It's quite a nice little area to visit. I've got to say, if you're having a busy day, the park's really busy and you want to kind of take a bit more chill, see some things you don't tend to see at a theme park, definitely worth checking the sea life area. Definitely. You can see kind of sharks, you can see rays, lots of fish. Now, after dinner, if we haven't got family with us, we tend to pop towards Katanga Canyon at this point. Perfectly positioned if you've been to the Pizza Pasta restaurant, because that's actually in the area. And there's 2 rides to do here. The first one, Runaway Mine Train, is one of the oldest coasters in the park. It is a family coaster. You need to be 0.9 metres to ride, so it's very accessible. But it does deliver quite a nice little thrill with those helixes, and the way it interacts with the rapids is nice as well. There are some smoke effects I've noticed last season as well, which were welcomed. And it's a nice ride for families, and you've got to ride it if you're going to do all the coasters at Towers. We also have the Congo River Rapids. Now this is river rapids in none of that sense. You're going to ride this, you're most likely not going to get wet, okay? There's not a lot to it. I remember when it first opened and the years I was a kid going, it was a wet ride. There were effects that got you very wet. You would get wet on it, and it was thrilling for that, really. Everyone loves a good water ride. Me personally, I love them. They're some of my favourite rides. Unfortunately, as the years have gone on, more and more of the effects, more of the rapids elements have been turned down. I've got to be honest, after last season, the season before, you'd be lucky to get a patch of water on you, I'd say. There are rumours that some of the effects may be up and running this season, and I'd like to see them. I'd love to see it. I'd love to get wet on that ride once again. But more than likely at the moment, you don't need a poncho for this one. Now, once we've completed Katanga Canyon, we head round the road, follow it along, and we come to Jewel. The Haunted House Strikes Back. Now, this is one of our favourite rides, and we have to visit every time. We're a very competitive couple, me and the wife, so we always go, we always try and beat each other's score. I've got to be honest, this isn't one of those kind of rides she's very good at, and I love it. I always thought I was very good, but recently I've kind of come across other people's scores that make me think, actually, I need to improve as well. Now, it's a brilliant ride. I did love it when it was the Haunted House only, when you kind of rode through that. It was a really good dark attraction. But adding the guns, adding the competitive element does make it a lot more fun. Now, it is very dark. The queue theme is brilliant as well. That's dark, it's scary. It's a scary ride. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's a haunted house. If you're going with children, be careful. They may find it scary. If someone's afraid of the dark, afraid of kind of jump scares, may not be the ride for them. Obviously, like I said before, if you're playing with the interactive guns, it kind of tones it down a bit. You're kind of more bothered about hitting the targets than noticing some of these big jumps. But I've got to be honest, there's been times where I've thought to myself, oh, I'm not interested in playing, when I've rode on my own, for example, or when the guns don't work and you put them down. When you ride it at that time, it can be quite intense, it can be quite scary. I've got to be honest, it still gets me sometimes. The other thing I've noticed with it is effects. Some effects don't work, some effects work at other times when they haven't worked previously. There's whole areas that can sometimes be just pitch black. And I think it's that not knowing what's going to happen kind of adds to the fear. Now, I'm going to be honest, we took some children with us, Alton Towers, my nephew and niece, last year. They rode Jewel for the first time. One's 7, one's 11. Neither of them really got into the gun game so much. They weren't, you know what I mean, aiming to get high scores, stuff like that. They did have the guns, but I think they're kind of noticing more the scares. I've got to be honest, my 8-year-old niece, she was scared of the ride. I've got to be honest, it'll be hard to get her back on next time. So I've got to say, look, if you've got young kids, they may be afraid of it. Like I say, to a degree, if you can get them competing in the ride, they might not. That'll take away the fear. But if they're not interested in that, this may actually be one worth passing by. I'm going to say I love it. I think it's great. If you're not scared of the dark, you like horror themed stuff, it's a really fun ride. If you're with someone and you're competitive, even better still. Try and get that high score. In fact, if you've rode the ride before and you know your high score, just drop it in the comments below. I'd love to see your high scores on Jewel and see how I match up with you all. Now, me and my wife tend to ride Jewel 2, maybe 3 times per visit to try and get our best score that trip. We love that competitive element that you get on it. But once we have finished, we move on and we end up in the Forbidden Valley. Now, the Forbidden Valley is a brilliant area for thrill seekers. If you're like me and you're a bit more thrill averse, it probably isn't one of your favourite areas of the park. But the Forbidden Valley does contain one of my target coasters that I'm hoping to overcome this season and face my fears with, and that's Galactica. Now, back when Galactica opened, it opened with the name Air and was the UK's first flying coaster. Now, what this means, instead of sitting upright like you do on most coasters, you will be dragged up so that you're on your stomach, lying flat, giving you the sensation that you're actually flying. Now, Galactica is a thrill coaster, so once again, height requirement of 1.4 metres to ride. And it does feature 2 inversions. So if you're like me and inversions are one of the things that you fear, it may not necessarily be for you, nor may the sensation of flying be your thing either. The other coaster in the Forbidden Valley is Nemesis. Nemesis, in my opinion, is the coaster that put Alton Towers on the map. It was their first successful secret weapon and was described as Europe's most intense coaster. And I've got to be honest, after riding this at the age of, I think, 11 and being put off coasters for 10 years, I can agree that this is very intense. It features 4 powerful inversions and races through incredible rock work while you go round the corpse of a space alien. It's a big thrill coaster, probably deserving of its 1.4 metre ride height limit. And I've got to be honest, it's not something I can ever see myself going back on again. If you love intense coasters, you're going to love this one. But if you're like me, you don't like intensity, you don't like inversions, steer well clear of this beast. The theming is spot on here, and next door there used to be a really good dark ride drop tower based on the story of the Nemesis. I really hope that that would one day return, but it is looking less and less likely every season. I've heard some whispers that some of the things that were in that area before have now been cleared out, so maybe next year, while Nemesis is having a retrack, we may see Nemesis Subterra again, but I do doubt Now, the Forbidden Valley isn't just big thrill coasters, it is home to a couple of flat rides. Like I say, it does home the old dark ride that's no longer there, and the roller coaster restaurant. Now, the flat rides, you've got the oldest ride at Towers here, the Blade. It's a pirate ship, a bit more family friendly. Anyone the height of 1 metre can ride. 1.4 you can ride alone. And it's a nice little change of pace from those big coasters. The other flat ride there at the moment is one of the Retro Squad members. This one's Funk and Fly. It's quite an intense ride actually for a flat ride. It looks very nice, and the soundtrack once again was spot on last season with all those kind of throwback 80s hits. I'm hoping they stay again this year. We know that Funk and Fly will be there, so I'll be riding that for sure. That's most of the thrill coasters covered at Alton Towers. There is one more, we'll come back to that in a moment, and I hope you'll understand why when I explain. But Alton Towers is known for its thrill coasters and rides. However, if you fancy a change of pace, there is also plenty to do there. Now, I'm not going to cover CBeebies Land. I'm hoping to do that with my youngest nephew during opening weekend and hopefully bring you a vlog on that. But there is a whole area dedicated to the little kids. We've talked about the Sea Life Zone and how good that is as an experience. But there are also award-winning gardens. Now, years ago, you could actually buy a ticket just to see the gardens themselves. Are that good. And I've got to be honest, they're a perfect spot if you've brought a picnic. The views in there, especially during the spring when all the flowers are starting to come out, are lovely. I'd always say check out the Chinese pagoda fountain, that's brilliant as well. If gardens aren't your thing, you've got the towers. Like I say, they're steeped in history and well worth taking a look at if you get the chance. Now, another top tip is to make sure you do at some point get on the Sky Ride. It's a cable car ride, transport that gets you from one side of the park to the other. It's really useful to save energy, save on steps. You're going to be doing a lot of walking while you're at Towers, so anything that kind of helps reduce that and gets you around the park quicker is worth doing. But not just that, you do also get some absolutely fantastic views of the park, whether it's the gardens, whether it's Wicker Man, Rita. You do get some absolutely brilliant views, some great photo opportunities of the park from there. If you're afraid of heights, it can be a little bit scary. I'm going to be honest, I'm a bit queasy sometimes on this ride, and if it wasn't for the fact that it saves your feet and some of the views you do get, I've got to be honest, I'd probably steer clear. You may want to if you don't like heights, but like I say, the views alone make it worth it. The other issue is weight. Now, with COVID especially, when they were kind of putting only a certain amount of people in these things, if you find the cable car stopping at any point, you'll get a bit of a swing. Okay. Now, obviously, the worse the weight distribution, the worse the swing. And that is something that we did experience during COVID. Me and the wife went, we were putting on our own, and for some reason we didn't think about the weight distribution, so we both sat on one side. Now, we stopped about halfway through the line, while somebody must have been getting off in one of the stations, and it swung ridiculously. It made me feel very sick, I've got to be honest. But as long as you're getting kind of in there with other people and you get the weight distribution right, it shouldn't be an issue. Like I say, if you don't like heights, it can be a bit of an issue, but it's vital really to save on walking. Now, a purchase I'd always recommend while you're at Alton Towers is one of their refillable drinks bottles. They use the Coke Freestyle machine, so there's plenty of different Coke-based flavours to try. They are dotted around the park, and like I say, saves you a lot of money really, especially if you're in a group, to refill instead of buying expensive drinks at various points in your day. Instead, you refill it up, drink out of it, get to the next point, fill it again. You've only got to wait 10 minutes in between these refills. And like I say, there are plenty of these machines spread out throughout the park. So I'd say, look, especially if you're in a group, it's worth getting one of those refillable bottles for the day. And like I say, as long as you keep the bottle, you can actually reuse it, bring it another day, and it's cheaper to kind of reactivate it. Now, we always save our favourite coaster for last, and there's a good reason for that. Now, our favourite coaster is Wicker Man. It's Alton Tower's latest secret weapon, and I've got to be honest, it's a beautiful ride. It's a wooden coaster, but it's a family-friendly thrill ride as well. Height limit on this one, 1.2 metres, meaning it's accessible to most of your family members, and it delivers a great, thrilling themed experience. The queue line itself wanders through perfectly round the park until you reach the effigy of the Wicker Man. Now, at night, this looks amazing. The fire effects, the fire bursts, they just hit home at night much better than they do during the day. The ride itself always seems to be moving faster, pulling faster in the night as well. So if you can get a night ride and a day ride, you'll probably see a big difference between the two. I'd always save it for the night. Now, the theming on this ride is what sets it apart against pretty much anything else that towers or UK parks as a whole do offer. The theming is so well done. You're completely immersed in the queue. The pre-show is amazing. And then the ride itself delivers a lot of thrills while you're going through that giant effigy of the Wicker Man. Yes, the theming itself does kind of play against family. You know, sacrifices and family don't kind of mix. But I've got to be honest, the ride is brilliant. It's so thrilling. Yes, it's got its kind of big drops. It's quite fast around certain areas. But I've got to be honest, it's thrilling and accessible. Looks brilliant at night. Well worth checking out. And I've got to be honest, my favourite ride at the park. Now, with the Wicker Man being the latest ride at Alton Towers, you're going to find the queues are always pretty long anyway. So riding it at any time doesn't matter. I'd say, look, if you can get a night ride, that's when you should be riding it, regardless of queues. But once you've done that one, you've probably come to the end of your day. You may have a bit of time to pop in the shop. Towers Trading, it's got brilliant merchandise. But at that point, you probably enjoyed your day, go to the monorail, go home and get some sleep. Now, that's me giving you the guide to Alton Towers. Like I say, I think next week is actually opening weekend and we'll be there, like I say, maybe getting some footage, showing you what's new, what's changed at the park. I've got to be honest, we're going to be checking out CBeebies Land in particular on the Sunday. Hope to see you there. If you do see us, say hello. If you've enjoyed the video today, like, share and subscribe. But thanks for your time today. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.